It would be great if you could hit the subscribe button below this video or wherever you're listening. It helps more than you think. It helps me get stuff done. Thanks a lot.
I failed miserably on like my first round of like projections and all that kind of thing as like a sales manager and like reporting back to the board. I missed the mark so badly.
Eden Parker, welcome to the Sound of Sales.
Yeah, Bram, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
I think it's going to be super interesting. I think it's going to go wide on a variety of topics, not just sales.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to say something. Sorry for that.
Sorry, I thought you were about to say something, so I was pausing. As you know, too much courtesy going on, I guess.
All right, but let's kick off with the question: if I would call your 9-year-old son right now, and I ask him like, "Hey, what does your daddy do for a living?" What would I get as a reply?
Yeah, he would probably tell you he's a salesperson, and he's always on meetings. That's probably what he would tell you. So, we actually had a little bit. There were I don't know. You know, he's 9, so things shift and move at that age. But there was a period of time when they were asking those type of questions at schools, and what do you want to do? And he said, I'm going to be in sales like my dad. That obviously makes me happy. But like he knows I'm a seller. He hears me, talking about it with folks all day long. His bedroom is actually upstairs in my office, so it's right around the corner. So he can usually hear all the meetings I'm on. I don't know if he pays attention, but he can hear them.
He's listening while he sleeps, learning. That's pretty cool. Does he know what you sell?
No, I don't think he does. We don't. This is something that honestly, as an individual, I feel like I haven't done the best job at. I'm trying to figure out ways to get better and like balancing work and life. I'm just by my DNA. It's not that I feel obligated to or that I feel pressure to, but I'm very driven and engaged with like what I do for a living. It's very much like a part of how I feel about myself. For good or bad, but that's what it is. And so I try to have a little routine when I leave this office. That's why I moved my office into this room. So when I leave this office and I shut the door, I shut my laptop, I try to leave my work up here and, be with the wife and the son for a little bit before bed. He usually, we make him go to bed usually around 9:30 or so on school nights. And, I'm on meetings often until 7 or 8. So I try to talk more about his day and how school went or, whatever he has going on versus mine. So I don't know if he knows what I sell. I just knows he knows that I sell things and I seem to be good at it. So
most important. How do you balance that? Or how do you find that balance or try to find it between work and private?
I don't know if I have that figured out, Bram. I think a lot of it comes down to time management and the things that I preach on and teach to other sellers. I think we could go a million different directions with this, but I think, it's not the early bird that gets the worm. It's the bird that knows itself the best. And I'm very self-aware and I know my limitations on when I feel burnt and when I feel like there's too many things going on, and I know when I can go harder. And there are certain times that I justify that, right or wrong, that I do go harder and I'm more distant. And there's some times where, like I take a random Thursday, Friday off and I just, take PTO and decompress a bit. So I think that's one big thing I've been trying to implement is like maybe once a month trying to take a day or two PTO where, I don't work and everyone has my cell. If there's an emergency, they can call me. Otherwise, if you don't have my cell, then it's probably not important enough for you to get a hold of me on my PTO day. Committing to more vacations throughout the year to keep the wife happy. It's something that she really, really values, and I can work from anywhere. So, like this summer, we're going to go to the Bahamas for like a month, and I'll probably take a week off while we're there. So scheduling that out so we kind of have something to look forward to and be excited about as a family, like year over year, is something we started doing kind of early, I guess mid last year. I don't work on weekends, man. Rarely do I work on weekends. So I'll go hard Monday through Friday, but unless it's something direly urgent that has to be done before Monday morning, I'll skip a workout and work early in the morning. I'm a very early morning person, so I'll get up and be on the laptop at 5 a.m. and skip my workout if I didn't have extra work to do that day instead of working on the weekend. So I try to make those trade-offs to keep the family top of mind. I definitely don't have it all together, but I think it comes down to some time management and how you spend your day. I find that most of the time when I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's because I'm procrastinating on things that I need to get done, and I'm just haven't sat down and done the thing. And that's why I'm anxious and stressed, is because I'm procrastinating. So I don't think it's that difficult. It's just like the discipline and time blocking. I started putting things on my calendar after meetings when things need to happen, action items. Instead of me just adding it to a to-do doc, I actually go ahead and block off an amount of time on my calendar somewhere, and I set expectations for that. So, hey, Bram, I could definitely knock that out for you. It's going to be next Wednesday before I can get to that, but I can have it ready for you by Thursday morning. Does that sound okay? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I still struggle with that. And indeed, as you say, by procrastinating stuff, it gets in your mind and it's just a snowball effect. And I blocked stuff in my calendar as well at some point. I still do. And today was the first time I got to it. And I have been blocking slots in my calendar for the last 3 weeks. And today was the first time I got to it, because even when I block the slot, it gets overbooked or other stuff comes in. I'm like, yeah, that can wait a little bit longer. And when did you start realizing that it became an issue?
Yeah, great question. So, I think really when I got married to my wife, Nicole, and so like my son's my stepson. So I've never had children. I had been in relationships prior to, but none with the caliber of woman that I'm with now. And when we got married, she was VP of marketing at a very large company too. So she understood my world, and I was selling to other VPs of marketing, so I very much understood hers. And she's one of the, she's the only partner that I've ever had that could challenge me like intellectually in that way, and business acumen and that kind of thing. So that was a fun ride at the beginning. It's still fun, but we had some headbutts. We're both very stubborn, strong-willed people. But I think really I kind of saw that she never threatened me, never brought this up to me, but I think that I could see that, hey, if I don't do better at being a husband just as much as I try to be good at my job, this probably is going to have problems long term. Maybe we don't get divorced, but maybe we won't be happy, or that kind of thing. So I think being challenged by a partner that I truly respect, which is the first time that's happened to me in my life, is with my current wife. So I've been married before. I've learned lessons there, didn't make any changes. And so I think that was really a turning point for me. And having a son that calls me dad and thinks of me in that way. My dad left when I was 6 years old, so I didn't have that. And my stepdad was a great dude. I have a really great relationship with him now, but when I was a kid, we had no relationship, and he was always gone, always working. He drove like an hour one way to go to work, so it was like the normal work day plus another 2 hours of commute. So oftentimes he was gone before I got up to go to school, and then I'd be kind of in the room winding down by the time they got home sometimes. So and I just didn't want to create that same environment for my son. No shade on my dad, I love him, but it's not what I want for my family. So I think that's really when my perspective started changing on that, because before I was just all hustle all the time and fuck what anybody thinks about it. So that's kind of when I started changing perspective there.
Did it it almost must have shaped you to who you are today, to have that youth and the realization that might not be it?
Yeah. This is the chicken or the egg, right? This is something we could talk about and look at it so many different ways. I don't think I'd be where I am in my career today if I hadn't hustled so hard for so long, with that being the goal. So that's the trade-off. And that's always been how I've thought about this, is even with my wife, we've had conversations. She thinks I work too much now. I'm like, hey, babe, we have a plan. We have a financial plan. We have quality of life plan. We have these things. And, if I execute on this and I make this much money and I continue to do this for X amount of years, 3 to 4, then we're set, and I can dial it back, et cetera. And for me, talking about a 3 to 4 year timeline, that's such a short amount of time to me.
Yeah.
But to my wife, that's eternity. So it's this never ending kind of, difference of philosophy there, but 100% is shaped. But it's also, the second part of that is, there's parts of that has made me better at what I do, and relating to and understanding people more, being a better leader and manager, versus just an IC kind of hunter role, that kind of thing. So, I don't think I would change anything, but yeah, I mean, I think you are not by default, but everyone is somewhat a product of your experiences. You get to choose how that shapes you. I don't think that you don't have a choice and it just is what it is. And, well, this is how my life is, so I guess it's just how it'll be. I don't buy that shit whatsoever, but everyone is shaped by what happens. It's up to you how it shapes you, though.
You choose your own path. I see the things behind you as well, the execution, the perseverance. I think that is also like, keep yourself motivated, keep it going, and yeah, sometimes you need to do the hustle. But how do you look at the hustle versus the sales landscape of today? Because you have the hustlers do whatever it takes, but it's changing out there. Like, people are not buying from the car dealers, if you know what I mean. You have these typical salespeople that are like a car dealer. I'm going to sell you this car no matter what. How do you look at that?
No, I don't think I was ever that type of seller. I mean, maybe early in the beginning, just learning. I actually did sell cars for a bit, but once I got into like larger enterprise sales, like I knew that there's a whole lot more to this than just speed and that sort of thing. I think those things matter. I put a post up about that on LinkedIn today around follow-up emails for your sales calls. Like, dude, there's no excuse for like not sending a timely follow-up to your sales call. Like, it's just what happens between your sales calls is just as important as what happens on them. And so, how I today think a lot more about hustle, and this is something that Jason and I talk about a lot in Outbound Squad and in our coaching community, is, the art of hustling less to achieve more. So getting more focused on efficiency and effectiveness than just hustle. So like, where can I really dial in these efforts? What can be automated? What can be delegated? What can be systemized? And everything that can be systemized should be systemized. So, and this comes down to all the little bitty things. Like, one of the things I pointed out in my post is like, you probably have 5 to 10 different links, videos, white papers, documents, or whatever that you share throughout sales cycles. And every time you go to get that one, it takes you an extra 2 minutes to find that link and get it and pull it and put it in an email. If instead you had a folder on your browser that had all of your links organized in it that you could just pop and grab, super simple, you're shaving 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there, 30 seconds here. And every bit of that adds up over the course of the week. And like decision fatigue of you having to make decisions and hunt things down, it's just automatic. So I think about hustling very efficiently now. So when I tackle things in the day, what are the hardest things that I don't like to do? What are the things that take more bandwidth? Apparently this conversation takes more brain, but what takes more bandwidth and what takes less? So when should I do those? For example, if I was an SDR, I would be doing my cold calls first thing in the morning, because it's probably the hardest thing you're going to do all day. And I would do like my list building research at night, because that's like miserable, monotonous, and I don't have any other humans. So, that's kind of how I think about it these days.
4-Hour Workweek Style by Tim Ferriss. Get your stuff done. Automate with Nate. Who is the guy? Nathan Latka. I don't know if you know him. He's also a very systemized guy. Structure your process. Everything that can be processed, put it in a process. Automate it. Outsource it. Make most use of your own time to do what you only can do. Because if somebody else can do it, it's probably cheaper than if you do it. Yeah,
that's how I've really started looking at it more and more as I've gotten older, is like, what is the dollar value assigned to this activity? If it's not like $1,000 an hour job, then it probably shouldn't be me doing it. That's not saying I'm better than you or anyone else is saying that, if I focus my energy on revenue generating activity, that's about how much that time's worth, versus this is like anybody can do this. This is a normal job. So doesn't have to be someone that's a seller. Doesn't have to be someone that has this relationship with the client. It can just be someone that can follow directions, and that's what they can do. I've never met anyone better than Jason Bay at systematizing and processing and automating and outsourcing things. So he's taught me a lot in that way. But I would agree with you. That's how I think about it. Like, what is the value to time ratio there? And if it's not high enough, then it should go to someone else.
What if I would call up one of your teammates and I ask them, what is it that Nathan is so good at? What would they say to me?
That's a great question. I wish you would call them and let me know what they say. I don't know. This got brought up. I can't remember. I was interviewing someone who shall remain nameless to work for me on my team. Someone that, is another kind of LinkedIn influencer, if you will, if I can toss myself in that category. Someone that I respect, and he was interviewing with me, and he interviewed one of my colleagues that is on my team. And the thing that he said about me was, I have excellent time management skills. And it was funny to me that is the thing that he chose to say. But apparently that's one thing they would say, is I have excellent time management skills. I think I need to improve there, but whatever.
That's what you basically just said.
Yeah. It's probably because we do a lot of things at Alti Sales, so it's like constant switching of gears and context switching, and it is kind of rigorous. But I would hope that they say that I'm a empathetic leader, and then I seek to understand and dig into like what's really going to move the needle for them and how I can help. If I got to vote on what they'd say, that's what I hope they would say. But I don't know. It's a good question.
Is that something that you would lay awake of at night? How to be a better leader to people and how to help them better?
Yeah. I think that too many people try to fit other people and fit their team into boxes and frameworks. And there's just no such thing as a one size fits all. And I've definitely gotten better at this, but since day one, I forget where I heard it. It might've been somebody like Tim Ferriss. It might've been Simon Sinek. I don't remember, but one of my early mentors, if you will, via podcast, books, etc. I heard them talking about building teams, and you don't hire for the position, you hire for that person, and you build around your team and fill holes and gaps and around yourself as well. And so that's how I was approached it as a leader: is how well do we work together? How do we complement one another? What do I suck at that you're good at? Awesome, you're hired. Let's go. Because I don't need help with this part, but I do need a lot of help with this part. I can help you there, and you can help me here. And that's how I've tried to build teams, and it's also how I try to coach. Is like, it doesn't have to be my way. It doesn't have to be exactly how I would have said it, and trying to dig in and understand where folks are coming from and why they feel that way. Because I need to understand why that emotion exists in order to help you deal with it. I think that's the biggest part of camaraderie, trust from your team, like making them feel seen and heard and know that you're listening and know that they can come to you and you're not just going to hit them with some canned bullshit response. I think that's an important part.
From what I hear, you basically want to be that mentor to people based from, building that culture together and growing together instead of just feeding them bullshit.
The underlying desire there for me personally is regardless of how long you work with me, for me, at this company, whatever, I would hope that you look back on this experience and think, damn, Ethan was a good manager. That's what I would hope your feelings would be, regardless of how long you were there or what you're able to do or whatever. So that's what I try to keep top of mind on my end. And that doesn't mean that I coddle you or I let you walk on me or break rules or this thing or the other. No. But, I meet you where you are and I help you move one step at a time and help you focus on what needs to be focused on, because that's an outside lens that I can offer. It's sometimes hard to see when you're in it, so.
Who are your role models or inspirations?
That's loaded too. So we have real world people that I know personally, and then we have folks that I would definitely consider role models, mentors via books, some of the names I mentioned. So Simon Sinek, I'm a big fan of all of his books and what he puts out and that kind of whole methodology. in person, Jason is one of the most impactful mentors, Jason Bay, that I've ever had in my entire life. Has completely changed this whole world of like remote selling for me, because I came from living on a plane 3 different cities a week, 3-4 cities a week, home maybe a month out of the entire year, constantly dinner, events, drinks, this, that, and the other. And that was how I sold, and that was how I closed, and that was what I knew. And then I had to overnight shift to that's no longer an option. And he coached me through that, mentored me through that, and he still does with different things I work on. So he's definitely a big one. I've learned a lot from Tito, our CEO at Alti Sales, and how he looks at things, analyzes, and there's I don't know as many people as Tito that are as analytical, like so deep in the data and think about all of the different ways that that's affected or how that affects other things. I'd like to think I'm a fairly smart guy, but sometimes I get in a room with him and I feel really dumb after he talks for just a few minutes. I'm like, shit, why didn't I think of that? So, those are kind of like the top 2 folks that I think about as far as mentors in real life. And then the last person I'd say is probably my mom. Taught me how to, just no strings attached, love people and care about people, and just do the right thing. So,
Have you heard of the concept of developing a personal board mentally?
A personal board?
Yeah, it's something that I've discovered it through Tony Robbins' fellow, basically. He's a Belgian person who worked for Tony in the US for his events. And I was coached by her, and she learned me the principle of a personal board, which is essentially you put the people you look up to, like a Simon Sinek or Elon Musk or people that have died, Einstein or whatever, you put them in your mind. And when you are in front of a challenge, you embrace your personal board. Basically, you do a session, a meditation, or whatever you call it, and you say like, okay, what would my board do? What would Einstein do in such a situation? Or what would this person do? Is that something that would resonate with you?
That's interesting. Maybe I'd have to try it. I don't know. There's this is something I could sound very arrogant with what I'm about to say, but I hope that everyone can know that I'm not. I think that I see way too many people, because I have the unique opportunity of coaching hundreds of different sellers on a weekly basis, and even, tens of 20s of sales leaders and revenue leaders on a weekly basis. And I see far too many people that just like don't give themselves enough grace, and they're so hard on themselves and think that, the answer is outside of them. And so I'm all about learnings. I'm all about mentors. I'm all about looking at history and, analyzing that data, but also like I'm here for a reason, and I'm in this seat for a reason. I can make this decision based on what I know, what I think, how I feel, what my intuition says. It doesn't always need to be so overthought. So I like to empower people to be able to make tough decisions without having to overthink it, without having to get a million points of views, because sometimes what I find is you get a million points of views and you're just as far from fucking knowing what to do than you were before you started this process. So I like the idea of it. I think there's value there. I also see the flip side of the coin of how that could hold you back sometimes. Yeah. So I think time bounding everything that we're talking about right now is the most important part. Like, hey, I'm going to give myself till 3 p.m. to feel confident about a decision. If I do not, I will then consult with some mentors, and then I will give myself by 3 p.m. the following day to make a decision. And I'm just making a decision at that point and, move forward. So I like it. That's my spin on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's arrogant. I think it's knowing yourself at that point, believing in yourself. I think that's a big thing that not a lot of people handle or have in them, to really believe in their own decisions, how they got where they are. I mean, a lot of people that have that sort of imposter syndrome, like, I sit here on this chair, but I still wake up every morning and not surely knowing that I will make the right decisions today. You're never 100% sure, but it's a different way of looking at it. Like, I made this decision and I'm gonna live with it, whatever the result. But I made it consciously and knowingly that I should make that decision. I see what you mean.
I also just think there's no such thing as no going back ever.
Yeah, true.
Like, the faster you fail, the faster you can correct course. So, I don't live in a end all be all mentality. Like, that's just never the case ever about anything you could possibly imagine, except for maybe like some severe crime like murder or something. But outside of that, there's no such thing as no going back. There's no such thing as making a mistake and you can't undo it. It just doesn't exist. Not in a sales cycle. You may put yourself in a very bad position that's hard to claw out of, but it's not undoable. And just, I think having that confidence makes decisions easier.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, let's go back. How did you get into what you are doing today?
Yeah. So many things there, but I had my earliest training, if you will, and application of sales, selling drugs when I was a kid, helping my mom pay her mortgage and those kind of things. So I grew up, kind of in the hood outside of New Orleans. My dad left when I was 6, and it was just me and my mom. I have a sister too, but and so that was, the earliest thing that happened. I was about 14 years old, and some guy tells me I can make a few bucks doing this, that, and the other, and then that leads to more and more and more, and then I got caught up in a world there, and then I got exposed to like sales as a career, and I think my first ever like actual W-2 sales job was door-to-door sales. I worked for Vector, as I know a lot of folks have done that, selling knives, Cutco knives door-to-door. And I made a shit ton of money in about 6 months over, the summer and a little bit of the fall there. And I kind of opened up like, oh, wow, there's like a thing to do here. Like you can just sell shit and make money. And like, I don't have to have any credentials. That's amazing. Cause like I always hated school. I graduated with a 4.0, but I hated every minute of it. I was good at memorizing and test taking, but it was miserable. And so, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to not go to prison. I wanted to build a life.
How did you get out of that? Because I think selling drugs on the street is not something you just say like, okay, I'm going to quit this. Or did you?
Yeah, I mean, there was a compelling event that happened. I'd rather not go into the details, but it was it was a very dark time. Really bad things happened to me personally and to people around me, and that really opened my eyes, like that there are very extreme consequences here that sometimes result in loss of life in this world. And that was a very hard, pivotal moment where I made the decision of I don't want to do this anymore, and I need to get out and dissociate with these people and change the course of my life, because if I don't, I'm going to wind up just like this guy. And so I did. And I got a contract to go do some sales consulting with some guy that owned a few fitness centers, because I had kind of a background in health and wellness, bodybuilding, that kind of thing. So I knew the space, and I moved to Birmingham, Alabama from Louisiana, took that contract, and I just never looked back, never went back to Louisiana after that. That's kind of how I started getting out of that. That led to a whole lot of different things, and ultimately I found tech sales, but there was lots of steps along the way. I don't know how deep you want to go, but
yeah, because at some point you mentioned in the before the recording that you are basically closing big ass deals.
Yeah. So first I went with what I was passionate about in an industry, which was the health and wellness space. So first step was I got a personal training certification. I started kind of building my own business there, had clients, that kind of thing. Did really well. And then I've always had a scale mindset. So like, how can I build more? So I started like more of a consulting thing to like teach other people how to do this. And then I started taking contracts to like go in and turn gym businesses around. So like a total turnaround, they're losing money, get them to, positive revenue within 6 months. That was my guarantee. Did it every time. And that through that, I made a lot of connections, kind of built a name in the health and wellness space. And I think it was because the girl. So I was dating a girl at the time who was kind of high up in a fitness organization. She was in on a meeting where this vendor was pitching her CEO on, them becoming part of this whole package. And my girlfriend at the time really liked that product and that team, and so she came and told me about it. I was like, "Hey, you should check this out." And at that time, I had owned my own gyms by this time. I had built a few that I was running, and so I was going to check them out for purchase. But then, turns out that they were looking to build their go-to-market team in the U.S. They were out of Australia. They wanted to come to the U.S. and they had nobody here. And I was like, "Well, I've done sales and marketing my whole life. I'm very connected in the fitness space. Would love to toss my name in the hat." I just cold emailed the CFO and CEO and kind of pitched a little bit. And then about 2 weeks later, they gave me a call, and that was when I started getting into a lot bigger deals. So I closed some of the biggest deals of my life at that company. That was company was called Evolt. One of them was for $40 million. That's the biggest deal I ever closed. But there were several seven-figure deals with different, big fitness chains and such, and hospitals, universities that I worked on there. And that was kind of my first, really big enterprise sales experience, which was funny because I had no training, I had no prep, I had nobody managing me. I was basically CEO of North America. Get after it, I had units in my condo that I was wheeling up and down the elevators and shipping out to my sales, and flying out and seeing customers and doing the trainings for their teams and taking customer service calls. I mean, it was everything. I built the team up from me to a team of about 20 or so, and that's why I get so funny sometimes when people talk about these sales roles and require all this kind of experience. Dude, I sold more in 6 months than their entire Australian and China team did in 2 years by myself with no prior training. It's just not necessary. But anyway, that was my start to really big sales.
If you look at everything you did, because from selling drugs, from selling this product, from doing the consulting, what is the thing in there that makes you successful, would you say? Can you point your finger to it? Why did you succeed at doing that?
Yeah. Empathy, self-awareness, and situational awareness. I think those are the traits that dominate me as a human being. I can feel people. I can feel them, even on Zoom. I can feel you. I don't know how else to describe it. It's not that just I see your facial expressions and I see this. It's I can feel it hitting me. And I'm very good at sensing that and modulating my language to then have you come up to where I'm at. People talk about mirroring in terms of just doing what your prospects doing. But that's actually not the goal of mirroring. The goal of mirroring is you build this underlying subconscious trust, and then they start to mirror you and you pull them to you. And that's actually the goal there. Most people get that wrong. And that's just something it was I was born with it. I didn't have to learn it. I just knew it. I saw it, observed it, and put it into play. And so I think those are big parts of it. I mean, obviously discipline, hustle, just willingness to execute and work harder than everybody else has been it. I think there was a chip on my shoulder too, when I was always trying to prove myself. I was always the underdog. I was always given an opportunity. All right, we'll give you a shot and we'll see. And then, needing to win, a desire to win, and willing to do whatever it takes to do that ethically, of course. But, however many hours, however many flights I need to take, that $40 million deal I closed was a 2-year process. And I probably spent $250,000 in travel to close that deal. But we closed it. So it was, I don't know, man. I think it's a combination of those things. And I'm also a very quick learner. I've just always, the books I read, people, when I do ask folks for advice and get mentorship, I implement fast. I don't ask questions. I just implement and do it. If I trust, right? Obviously, if it's coming from somebody I didn't trust, I would probably ask some questions. But if it's coming from someone that I trusted enough to ask for input, if I'm going to get advice, then I'm going to implement said advice as fast as I can. And so I think those are the big things, man, that kind of drove that for me.
Does it get slowed down when you build up a team because you're not alone anymore? So there's more people involved, more processes sometimes. Do you think that impacts the overall achievement of a team?
Yeah.
Or do you hire for that? Do you hire for people that look like you or have some of that mentality that you share?
Yeah, those are both great questions. So again, when I hire, I think about my holes. Like, where do I routinely fail? I need to hire someone whose skill set will help me win there. It doesn't matter the other things. Like, I need you to help me win here. And so I don't necessarily look for people just like me for a couple of reasons. But like people just like me, like I'm never going to be your forever employee that's on your team. Like, I'm always going to be seeking the next step, more, move up. Like, this is in my DNA. And so like, I don't want to hire a lot of people that are just like me because I won't keep them very long. But there's like that side of the coin. And then it does slow because this is a loaded question. The short answer is yes, it slows. Progress slows with building a team. But I think more importantly to understand is like why. Because whenever, for example, if we take the Evolt example, nobody ever sold as much as I sold of the team that I built. Nobody, not a one. Even whenever I was managing them 70% of the time and only selling, 20 to 30% of the time on just like really large deals, I still brought in more revenue than everyone else combined. And I think there's a little bit of difference there of like saying, yeah, hey, like I'm VP of sales for North America. So like, what do we need to do to get this done? Like just the thing you can throw around there, and like having the weight versus like I'm an account executive or I'm this or I'm that. Our sellers weren't called account executives, but it's that's like when a founder led sales situation. If you have like an 80% close rate, and then, all right, I'm going to go hire 10 AEs. We have product market fit. Like, well, hold up, back up a step. Like, are you doing this because you're the founder and you can throw that weight around? You're selling like access to you to these people that you're selling, or you're doing deep discountings, or you're making guarantees that other people can't because you're the CEO and you're the founder. Of course, you're fucking going to close higher percentage in your AEs that don't have the authority to do all that. Like it's just not a fair comparison. So it's not a fair comparison. Me being the person that calls the shots for this region, I can approve whatever I want. I can spend whatever I want on travel. I have all these things and I can make whatever deal I want to make. You as a seller do not have that same freedom. You have to get approval from me. You have to do all these things. So, I can't expect your results to be the same as mine. So what I focused on was what is after, and I don't know this until I get into it. So like after about 6 months, I'm like, hey, what are we averaging close percentage, like from initial conversation to close? What's that average? Great. For the next 6 months, I want to improve that by 5% across the board. And the next 6 months, I want to improve that by 5% across the board. And that's just what I focused on personally as a leader. I feel like that worked well. That sped up progress, and it allowed me to kind of zero in on each person. Like, what's that little thing where this one needs to move the needle? Some are better at qualifying. Some are better at asking deep discovery. Some are better when they get in a negotiation. Some of them demo fantastically and really drive impact. Some of them, are kind of pitch and throw up and show up, that kind of thing. So that's really how I think about it. But I don't think as like the sales leader, especially if you were something like in my seat where you're early on and you have like a heavy title with this company in this region, or I don't think you can hold people to the same expectations that you were able to do because they don't have that same freedom and authority to do so.
Yeah, it's true. But do you let go of, because letting go of that expectation is one thing, right? It's good on paper, but if you're a very motivated person, you always crush those quota. You know what you can close, and you put someone in charge. And even if you say like I'm gonna improve 5 or 6%, it's still like in your mind you could do better. Do you notice that could be hard on a one-on-one, for example, or on a quota review? How do you let go of that? Letting go of your own capabilities or expectations?
Yeah. I don't know how I would tell someone to let go of it. For me, I mean, how I let go of it is like, just calling myself on unrealistic expectations. Like, this goes back to like the difference of being confident and knowing who you are and why you're in that seat versus feeling like you're not good enough. Why would I hold, if I truly believe that I'm good at what I do, then why would I hold every person that I speak to my standards? Because, like, you know, if I'm statistically top 1% of every sales organization that I've been at, that would imply that I'm better than 99% of the sellers that I've gone up against. At least I know how to get to revenue more. So why on earth would I expect everyone? Everyone can't be top 1%. Everyone can't be. It's impossible. Math doesn't work that way. So I think like it's just level setting and understanding, like, again, like, you're in this seat for a reason, man. You got here. You cannot hold everyone to the same standards that you hold yourself. Not saying you should lower standards for yourself, but we need to have achievable numbers, and that needs to make sense, like, in the market. So for me to assign a quota based on my results, I think is ridiculous. So year one, my sellers didn't have a quota. We just had a commission structure that was tiered up based on volume, but there was no quota. Like, if you don't hit this, you're fired. Like, none of that, because I didn't know what to set quota at. I had no idea. I also didn't know, like, what territories were going to shake out differently. Like, is the West Coast way better than the East Coast? Like, so is that not a fair comparison? What about the Midwest? What about the Southeast? This, that, and the other. So those are all variables. I had no clue. And I spent hours trying to figure out how I was going to, like, get targets. So instead, I just worked with the CEO to get, hey, what is our company target for North and South America for this year? What is the company revenue target? It's X. Great. And then I would go to my lineup of pipeline and who I'm speaking with, and I would think, you know, how much revenue do I have here? How much am I really confident around, you know, closing this year? What can I do? Subtract that from the number. This is the number I need everyone else to hit. Work the math backwards on, like, basically a 50% reduction of my output. That's not saying that I'm that much better than everyone, but that's how I approach the math to start with, and kind of set standards for everyone. And then some people do really well. Some people hit that bar. You know, the stars will shine. But I think that if you are good enough to get in the seat that you're in to lead a group of sellers, then everyone that you manage is not going to be the same level of skill set, because everyone cannot be in your seat. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. And your goal is not to make everyone good enough to be in your seat. Your goal is to help everyone be their best selves, and whatever that means for them. So if you want to move in a leadership role, I will help and groom you in that way. If you want to be the best fucking IC you could be, and you want to make a ton of money as a seller, I will help you do that. If you want to move into marketing, I will help you do that. You know? And so that's how I think about it.
It's nice if you can let go of that and realize that. I think it's a lesson to be learned for a lot of people. Sometimes including myself, if I'm being honest. Like, sometimes you hold something against someone and you think, like, okay, I expect this. And even though maybe it's just a junior person, no experience or whatnot, both professionally and personally, I think. How did you get into that, basically? Did you realize that? Did you walk against the wall of people basically telling you to fuck off, to say it like that? You and your quota, screw it.
Yeah. I think that I failed miserably on, like, my first round of, like, projections and all that kind of thing as, like, a sales manager and, like, reporting back to the board. I missed the mark so badly, and that was very much embarrassing for me as an individual. And then now I also set these ungodly expectations from the start. So I think it's just, I learned through failure. And people like to say that, hey, you didn't win, you learn. If you didn't win, you learned. And, like, yeah, but, like, very few people actually. Me and my wife were having a conversation about this the other day. We got in an argument and we were talking about some things. She's like, well, really, I don't remember what all was said, or this, that, and the other. I was like, well, I think that you can remember. And I think that it's important that you try to, like, really go back, play back time, and look at what happened, and like, try to be there in that moment again, because that's the only way that we can learn from and figure out ways that we can improve next time. And that's something that I've always taken very seriously, is when I have an extreme failure, or even a small failure, is like deeply analyzing that. Okay, where did this start? Where did the problem start? And when you think you know what it is, go back further and like really think about those things and really get deep on what emotions were happening that drove that decision for me. Where was my head at? Why was I thinking that? What was going on in my personal life outside of this to influence what this was? Like every little bitty detail. And then I was able to kind of see like where I went wrong. And that wasn't a one-time process. That was a many failure process to then figure out kind of the recipe there. But I mean, I think that's how I got there first. But I was super embarrassed on like a huge board meeting that did not at all go my way. So
eye-opening moment.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do. And if I look back to my own quota setting and that sort of stuff, it's always like, yeah, you fail on that the first few times you try it. And you think, yeah, this person is going to do very well because X, Y, Z. And then you basically don't know how the market will react in a certain region. And you just put a number on it. And then you realize, well, this is not going well, but you've already set a quota on someone's hat. And it drains the person if they also know it's not going well. As a leader, as a founder, as whatever, you can take that learning and do something with it. It's your business, it's your responsibility. But if you put that on someone who is there to actually help you reach that, and you give them an unreachable quota, it will impact them as a person as well, I believe.
For sure. They're going to churn. They're going to not be happy. Their work-life balance is going to suck. Their morale is going to suck. Therefore, their performance is going to suck. Like,
yeah,
it all goes hand in hand. And it's really hard to go back to when you've set a quota. If someone is driven and they're motivated and you give them a quota and they see they're failing, it's hard to go back to them and say, hey, you know what? I made a mistake. I'm lowering your quota, because they still have that feeling of like, I fucked up. In their head.
And that might be even get worse because they would think the quota is lowered by their performance.
Yeah.
And not by the market.
I haven't tried that. That's just a thought that I had.
I think it's very true that could be a result for sure. As a last question for you, if I could give you a billboard on the side of the highway or wherever, and I give you a call, say, Ethan, you can put anything on it that you want, except marketing related slang and that sort of stuff. What would you do with the space?
I would say put memento mori on the board. That means remember you have to die. It's a Stoic philosophy of being present, being in the moment. Knowing at any moment you could leave this earth, and whatever your beliefs are on what happens next, this is over and this is all you got. So that's something that's, it's tattooed on my arm. You can't really see it there. And that's a reminder to myself. And that's what I would want to remind everyone else is, hey man, you're going to die. So, enjoy life a bit.
Do you live by it day by day? Is it something you constantly,
not always. I try to,
think
but
about?
Not always. One of those, works in progress.
Yeah.
It was put on my arm to be a motivation to help me remember more. But I don't always pay attention.
It's an important one, indeed. You can sometimes get too much caught up in stuff and then remember, like, tomorrow I can die, and what's the word right now?
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that. Well, on that note, Ethan, I would love to thank you for joining me on the Sound of Sales today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. It was a fun chat. A little bit different than normal. I like it.